Now, nearly 2 years have passed since the brutal conflict broke out in Sudan between the military government in Khartoum and the Rapid Support Forces militia, triggering one of the world's most devastating humanitarian crises. Over 30 million Sudanese are now in urgent need of assistance, with millions displaced and tens of thousands dead. Reports of sexual violence being used as a weapon of war continue to rise. The UN's Reproductive Health Agency, UNFPA, warns that over 12 million women and girls, along with a growing number of men and boys, are at risk. Well, with me now is Hala Al-Karib, a Sudanese human rights activist and regional director of SIHA, which is based in the Horn of Africa. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. It's lovely to have you here. It's important to say that things are changing on the ground in Sudan. We've seen the army taking more control of territory in the country, including, crucially, the capital, Khartoum, as well. What does this mean for the humanitarian situation in Sudan?
Thank you for having me. The humanitarian situation is still extremely dire, and Sudanese are still struggling to have access to their very basic needs. Most of the country are literally living in starvations, and with the massive funding cuts, Sudan's populations are in a very, very dire situation. The country is still going through, massive conflicts in different parts. Shelling and bombardment of cities and villages is still happening, and sexual violence is still happening to women and girls and boys and men in many parts of the country, including in Darfur.
And you're talking there about the violence and, crucially, the sexual violence that's happening in Sudan. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that we've seen rape, sexual violence being used in a conflict situation in the country. How has it emerged, or how has it been happening this time around during the civil war?
Well, sexual violence in Sudan is beyond anyone's imagination. I would say Sudan right now is the capital of sexual violence in the world. And this has not been happening in a vacuum. It has been happening because for more than literally 20 years, they have been silenced about the conflict-related sexual violence that has been happening in Darfur and different parts of the country. Issues of accountability, has not been addressed, and the impunity has prevailed and emboldened perpetrators. Since April 15, Sudanese women are suffering immensely, of sexual violence. My organization has documented cases for little girls as young as 6 years old and older women as above 75 has been exposed to rape and gang rape.
And the UK government will be hosting a conference on the situation in Sudan later this month. What are you expecting from the UK government and others?
We really hope that the UK would leverage on its history and connections to Sudan and will contribute significantly towards ending, these massive atrocities, and to stand by the Sudanese people and enable more humanitarian access and more protections for civilians on the ground.
Thank you, Hala Al-Karib. Thank you so much for joining us here.